You know who else represents himself in court? Serial killers. Let me ask you a question. Do you believe in psychics? Do you believe in, clairvoyance, tarot cards, all this kind of stuff, ghosts? I do. I'm very much a believer. If somebody came up to me with a card and I was like, you have 7 days to live, I was like, well, they're right. They're right. I've got 7 days. And listen, me and my brother recently went on a ghost hunt on our joint channel. It was terrifying. Never in my life have I been so scared. Well, it's a different kind of scared. I was terrified, but listen, I believe in it. And I respect that people that do it. But at the same time, I do believe there are people who are just a little bit crazy and do kind of like fake all this kind of stuff. It's 50-50 chance. And then you kind of have to decide if you trust that person, if they feel trustworthy, especially if you're paying for it. It's a bit like, and if a psychic told you something really outlandish, like you're going to lose all your hair in a crazy oven accident, would you never use the oven again? Are you that kind of person? I think a lot of it, especially of what we see online, you kind of have to take with like a pinch of salt, right? What we're looking at today is probably one of the worst case scenarios of a psychic getting it completely wrong, and it started way back in 2022. If you're into the true crime space or close to the area, you might have heard about the Idaho 4. This was a tragic, horrible situation where 4 college kids were murdered in their own homes.
So, Tim Channing, what we know right now is that police do still have this house here blocked off with crime tape, investigating here. We have one person also kind of manning the scene, making sure nobody messes with the area. But what we know is yesterday, this house right here is where police found 4 bodies. And later that day, University of Idaho confirmed that they were U of I students.
The person found guilty is now locked up. He admitted to doing it, but there's a lot of missing pieces with the case, so it's been debated a little bit online. One of the many people to talk about the tragedy online was Ashley Gillard. Of course, she doesn't have a social media anymore, but she was a tarot reader and supposed psychic on her TikTok. Her whole gist was using tarot cards to communicate with the dead and do readings to find out who did it, basically. She made hundreds of videos talking about a lot of different cases, and most recently, the Idaho 4. This is a really weird thing to get yourself involved in as a psychic, just to go online and be making stuff up and saying all this stuff when it's such a public platform. The victims' families can see it. It's very like tread lightly, I don't think people should be like, yeah, the card said it was the gran, or blame somebody for a murder through tarot cards. I don't think it's appropriate to do at all during an active investigation. I feel like if it was a respectful reading on something that had happened ages and ages and ages ago, like we said in the other true crime episode, where other people can't be affected by it anymore, then it's probably okay. Okay, watch this. The names might not make sense just now, but just listen to everything she's saying and the details she's giving.
I already posted this on my website and on my backup page, but anyway, the night of the murders, Rebecca Schofield was trying to get in touch with Jack DeCour. She was having anxiety and control issues because he was not communicating with her. Before he committed the murders, he stole Murphy back. He cared more about Murphy than he did the money. He just felt like money, like the most important thing was Murphy.
Sorry, so she's flat out just bringing up names and saying names and all of it
to him. So anyway, so he spent some time in introspection before he committed the crimes to make sure it was something that he wanted to do. Again, getting Murphy back brought emotional satisfaction and fulfillment to him. So the rest of the stuff, he had to think if he really wanted to do it. So he started thinking about what his life was like in his glory days when he was winning, when he was playing tennis and he was winning. And he wondered if life could ever be that good again. And again, with this experience with Rebecca Schofield, she told him that it could be possible for him to play again and for him to win again. So he just sat and thought about it for a while, and he was not answering Rebecca Schofield. She thought he wasn't committing the crimes, so she panics. She goes back to the drawing board and she tries to figure out a solution to the problem. When she went back to the drawing board, she thought, who can I call? She felt like she had multiple options, and one of those options she felt was Brian Kohlberger. She contacts Brian Kohlberger, again, using her book Creative Arts app, sends him a link and sends a coded message as if she needed his expertise, like he was aficionado, and she needed his expertise and the conclusion of it or whatever. So he opens it up and he's reading the messages and he's like, What do you want? Speak directly. Speak clear. What do you want? What do you
She's given so many details for something she does not know fully. Like very precise
need me to
details.
do? And she tells him what to do without telling him who she was. He wanted to know who she was, but she did not tell him who she was. She just said what he would receive if he was to go commit the murders. And in the book, it says there will be a girl, and she's describing who he needs to go and murder. So he goes to, but she also tells him not to assume anything when he gets there, because Jack DeCour would be there, or potentially be there. So when he gets there, Jack DeCour is already committing the crimes. He's not answering Rebecca Schofield because he's literally busy committing the murders. So she was making a mountain out of a molehill for nothing and implementing another solution to a problem that wasn't there. And therefore, then they have Kohlberger, who now knows Jack DeCour committed the murder. So Jack DeCour did not want a partner, did not want to share his whatever reward he was going to get for it. So Kohlberger leaves, tells them to forgive each other, leaves. And Jack DeCour continues the crimes as planned. But then after that, they realize they have the issue of Kohlberger. He knows what they did. And so that's why Kohlberger eventually got.
So that was an example of a type of content she did, right? Speculating and making stories from card readings to try and make sense of super serious crimes and murders. You hear her name in this video, but she definitely mentions thinking that the actual culprit was someone involved with the school. And that ended up being a lady called Rebecca Schofield. Since Ashley's account no longer exists, we can't go back to see them, but that's probably for the best, given that Rebecca was being accused of murder and all sorts by Ashley. Ashley made probably hundreds of videos about the Idaho 4, blaming Rebecca, who was a teacher at the university the victims attended, for their murder, claiming she had set it up after a sexual relationship with one of the victims went sour. This is all speculation she got from cards, by the way, about an ongoing investigation. And all of this with no proof at all. Thinking about this though, imagine being that poor teacher, right? 4 of your students are murdered and they jailed the killer. But there's some crazy woman making all these videos about you saying it was your fault. What could you even do in this situation? Like that, surely there's something like defamation of character, or she's a teacher, she could lose her job if somebody's out there saying, yeah, she did the murders, all because they read it on some tarot cards. It's crazy. And you'd be right if you said, oh, you know, you should sue this person, because that's exactly what Rebecca did.
Okay, so I just got out of the most recent TikTok psychic court case a couple hours ago, and it was infinitely more insane than I could have ever imagined, because the TikTok psychic, or Ashley Gilliard, if you don't know, she's the woman who randomly accused a professor in Idaho of doing the horrific act of killing the 4 university students. Or at least she was the one who orchestrated all of it. So she accused the professor of this, and she also accused the ex-boyfriend of one of the victims for being the one who actually went through and did it all.
Again, I can't stress enough, she just got this out of thin air. There was no evidence at all. She just brought these people into this murder and was like, fact, and then told people.
It's absolutely insane and had no place on the internet. So her TikTok got banned, and she just decided to double down. She made another account and continued to slander these 2. But when the professor decided to send multiple cease and desist, she said that she was going to wipe her ass with them and not comply, because she still claimed that the professor was behind all this.
I don't even believe at this point that the psychic genuinely believes in what they're doing themselves. You can't just make shit up, and when you get caught out for it and held legally accountable, be like, no, she's still the murderer. That is crazy.
So that left the professor with no choice but to actually sue her.
Absolutely,
now,
as she should.
The professor has essentially won the defamation case. Now you have the damage hearing. So they're going for damages now, and they're trying to figure out how much Ashley owes the professor. And today, she essentially treated the courtroom like she was still trying to prove that the professor was behind all of it.
But they have a person locked up. A professional person, investigator, has done all this, and they have found who the murderer is. So the psychic goes into the courtroom still trying to convince people that she knows everything? That is what, sorry, could they plead insanity in this case? Because that is insane.
Again? Like, it doesn't make sense. this isn't relevant anymore. Now we're looking for damages. Why are you still trying to prove that the professor was behind it all? Like, it doesn't make sense. She even questioned herself, and she spent over, I think it was about an hour, essentially interviewing herself on the stand, which was crazy. And then the attorney of Rebecca Schofield, the professor, got her to admit that she, in fact, had zero proof whatsoever behind any of the claims that she had. And then on top of that, she also says that psychics don't need proof. All they need is spiritual intuition.
Yeah, but you can't prove that in court, can you? Imagine, oh, you know, yeah, no, I didn't kill them. It was a ghost. That's my spiritual intuition. You can't rely on that. You need solid evidence. And to go online and to say all this stuff again to thousands of people just because it's your spiritual intuition is crazy.
Okay, so it's safe to say today went awful for her in court. She even broke down in tears at one point, and then while they were playing the TikToks of her slandering the professor, she started smirking. So I don't even know what's going on anymore, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the future now. Just got out of the third day of the TikTok psychic's defamation case here in Boise, Idaho, and today was honestly equally as insane or even more insane than yesterday. So today we found out that the professor had been diagnosed with PTSD after the slander coming from Ashley Gilliam.
Oh my God. So all of this nonsense for TikTok, because this person thinks she's a psychic, has given someone PTSD. Oh, you would. I mean, being accused of being a murderer is probably like the most horrendous thing ever. And even after the case is solved, for that person to double down and have people in the comments clearly believing this psychic, that would do something to you.
Who is the TikTok psychic. So, you know, she made so many videos accusing her of being the mastermind behind the murders of the 4 students at the University of Idaho. Did this by bringing on the specialist who diagnosed her with PTSD. So essentially, we get it confirmed that she has PTSD, she has an anxiety disorder, and a handful of other things that stems from the TikTok psychic's slander campaign against her. Now, Ashley, because, you know, she's representing her.
She's representing herself. That's what all the people who are guilty do. They represent themselves. And, you know, this probably affected the teacher's job as well. She can't teach her job, especially with, like, you know, this went viral. There could have been students in there that probably might have believed a psychic and be like, yeah, this teacher's a murderer. Herself, she went up to the questioning stand and started questioning this mental health professional. And the whole time, she started essentially just trying to say that, like, how are you qualified to diagnose her with PTSD? And then she pulled up the definition of, like, how to diagnose someone with PTSD. And we stood on one paper for about an hour. So she questioned this mental health professional. Imagine what kind of person you have to be to, one, represent yourself in court if you're not a lawyer. You know, fair enough, you're a lawyer. But representing yourself in court when you have no experience in it. 2, to question a mental health professional about PTSD and try and catch them out on that. I'm sorry. No. Over a paper for 1 hour. And this isn't just like a paper. It's actually like, it's 4 different sentences. And she kept on trying to have them read it out loud so she could, like, try to find some, like, way around to be like, no, actually, she didn't have a valid reason to be diagnosed with PTSD. It was insane. It was sickening to watch. And then they brought on the mother of the professor to testify how much her daughter had been suffering from this and how she'd been suffering from PTSD and anxiety and chronic stress after all of this happened. And Ashley then decided to start asking her questions of, well, are you a mental health professional? How would you know that she's actually dealing with stress? The whole thing was so insane to watch. But tomorrow, it's going to be even crazier. Okay, so Atozi here is keeping us up to date on all that's happening in the courtroom. Listen, let me just say this. Serial killers, that's the mind frame you have to be in to think, yeah, I'm going to go into a court after I've committed a crime and represent myself. You must have the arrogance to do so. Now, we have a verdict of this whole court case. It came to a pretty huge payout.
All right, so we just got out of court here in Boise, Idaho for the TikTok psychics case, and she lost massively. I have never seen a defamation case this big because she now has to pay the professor $10 million. $5 million of those dollars are in punitive damages just alone.
10 million. Will she ever get that money? How does that work? Because does someone give it to her and then the other person has to pay back this like thing over time?
So, I mean, this is insane. And this is just a massive lesson to, hey, maybe it's a really bad idea to accuse an innocent professor of committing a quadruple homicide and have...
I mean, common sense, like you just don't do it. You don't just get online and be like, yeah, I'm going to accuse this person of murder. Why? Oh, a ghost told me. Lock them up. Lock them up.
Having some relationship with one of their students. Who would have thought that would be a bad idea? But she didn't only do that. No, she did that repeatedly over and over again. After cease and desist, after multiple cease and desists, after the police came out and said, hey, no, this is not true. She's not a suspect. After they arrested the guy who actually did it, after they charged and sentenced the guy.
There's so much evidence that the teacher did not do anything. So much evidence, including catching the real person and then admitting to the crimes. Yet the psychic doubles down, just like someone who would represent herself in court.
The guy currently has life in prison, but she's still adamant that the professor was behind all of this. And because of that, and because she kept on spreading this misinformation on her social media, she now is essentially in $10 million of debt. This is generational debt for some absolute stupidity. Why would you ever do this? I don't understand what the upside here was.
Like, okay, so you got some attention on TikTok, but was that worth $10 million? $10 million because you decided to act like a moron.
But regardless, the good thing from this is the professor, Rebecca Schofield, her name is 100% cleared now. There's no doubt whatsoever that she was completely wronged. Ashley Gilliard is a selfish person who tried to destroy the life of Rebecca Schofield for no reason whatsoever. And now that decision will affect the rest of her life.
Yeah, like he said, that decision is going to affect the rest of her life. She's going to be paying, I don't know, do you pay gradually? Is she ever going to get her to a 10 million? Spiritual intuition is valid for trivial things, right? Like catching cheating men or getting the heebie somewhere and leaving. Not for accusing someone of a very real, horrible and recent crime publicly. How horrible must that professor have felt if she actually got PTSD from it, as she had racked up so many views too. And unfortunately, some people did believe her. And trying to prove a mental health professional can't diagnose someone with PTSD so you pay less damages is crazy. Anyway, you would have thought that Ashley would have had the fear of God stricken in her at hearing she has to pay someone $10 million. But no, first chance she got, she made a 30+ part series on why everyone was wrong and continued with her unseriousness.
People are coming to my page to see my response or to get information regarding how I feel about the $10 million verdict that was awarded to Rebecca Schofield. First, my thoughts are it's just slightly irritating because I was ready for this to be over. I wanted to receive a verdict that was fair and impartial and based on the evidence. And unfortunately, that did not happen. And because the jury could not be fair and impartial and base their decision on the evidence, we have to keep going. Now, instead of this being over, we have to go through a process of motions and appeals so that we can get to a fair and impartial decision. $10 million verdict against
Hot
$10 million verdict. $10 million verdict against $10 million.
All right, Mom.
They're mad about $10 million. $10 million.
Part 24, part 23, part 22, part 21.
$10 million. $10 million.
Shut up.
So I'm getting emails.
Shut up. Shut up.
$10 million.
Shut up before you go. Have you not learned anything? Be quiet before you go online and say something else that is going to count as defamation or something stupid. Can you not learn from your mistake? Like, that's crazy.
$10 million verdict. Still buying tarot cards.
Okay. This has to be the fact that somebody, after being fined $10 million, then goes online and makes a 30 plus series, episodes, whatever, of this verdict. That has to be the nail on the head, to be like, you know, this person is actually not okay. They are not all right. And they might need some further help in life. And there's no shame in that. But when it gets to a point where it costs you $10 million, come on. I don't think she's going to pay any of that money. No one is getting their 10 million at all. If anything, I think she's going to go online and make it even worse for herself. And also, isn't this woman a psychic? Did she not see any of this coming? Something must have not been right in those cars. Maybe they don't work as well as she thinks she does for her. Okay, let me know your opinions down below. Were you following this from the beginning? And are you surprised by the outcome and the end? 10 million, I am a little bit surprised at 10 million. I was maybe like, you know, defamation, whatever, but 10 million? No, good for you. All right, thank you so much for joining me. Subscribe if you have not already. Give this video a thumbs up and I will see you in the next one.